So today we're going to learn about perpendicular bisectors. And to start, let's review what it means for two things to be perpendicular. So lines, segments, or rays are perpendicular if they intersect to form right angles. Now, let's say here I have segments AB and CD, and I want to show in my diagram that they are perpendicular. We use this small square, that right angle symbol, to show that the lines are perpendicular. So if I see that small square in the corner of an intersection, I know that those two lines are perpendicular. Now, if I'm writing about segments AB and CD being perpendicular, I'll use this symbol right here. So I would write segment AB is perpendicular to segment CD. Now let's add on to that idea a little more and talk about perpendicular bisectors. This is just a line, segment, or ray that, one, passes through the midpoint of the segment. Now remember, that is the definition of a bisector. And number two, it has to be perpendicular. Perpendicular to that segment. So let's say I have this segment AB with midpoint M, and I want to draw the perpendicular bisector. Well, first of all, if M is the midpoint, I know that segment AM and MB are congruent, because that's the definition of a midpoint. And my perpendicular bisector has to pass through the midpoint. Then also, it has to be perpendicular to that segment, so I'm going to draw that right angle symbol, that small square in the corner, to show that it's perpendicular. Let's take a look at this first example. I have AB as the perpendicular bisector of segment CD, and we need to figure out what this tells us. First of all, since it's perpendicular, that tells us that all four angles are going to be right angles. And I want to show that on my diagram, so I'm going to draw that small square in the corner to show that all those angles are right angles. The second thing this tells me is something about congruent segments related to AB being the bisector of CD. Now, the question is, what is getting bisected? CD, segment CD is getting bisected here. And AB is like the knife doing the bisecting. So what this tells me here, based on what I know about a bisector with AB bisecting CD, I know that segment CE is congruent to segment ED. So I'm going to write that right in here. CE, that segment, is congruent to segment ED. Let's look at one last example together. This tells me that CF is the perpendicular bisector of AB. First, I need to name my right angles. Well, the angles that are going to be right angles are the ones where CF and AB intersect. So looking at my picture, I can see that angle CFA and angle CFB. Those are going to be my right angles. Now, what are my congruent segments? I have CF being the perpendicular bisector. CF is doing the cutting and AB is being cut in half. So that tells me that the two halves of AB are going to be congruent. So my segments AF and segment BF, those are going to be congruent. Those are the halves of segment AB. Now I just need to label my diagram, drawing in tick marks and those right angle symbols. So I know that my angle CFA and my angle CFB, those are right angles, so I'm going to draw in those boxes in the corner. And I know that segment AF is congruent to segment BF. So I draw those tick marks on those segments to identify that they are congruent.